I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'm serving as chair because Chair Ian McLean is joining us remotely. Could I have a motion to reconvene in open session? Moved by Jim, seconded by Doug. All those in favor? That is carried. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, there are no motions coming out of closed. Next is 7.0. It's 7.1 through 7.14, and it is the consent agenda item. Would anybody like any of those items pulled out to discuss? And we'll do them in one motion. If I can have a mover and a seconder, consent agenda, moved by Tony, seconded by Sandy. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, colleagues. There's no business arising from the minutes. We have no correspondence, so we will go to police service board reports. First up is Chief of Police reports. 11.1 Human Resources Dashboard Annual 2024 report. Chief, do you want to introduce this before we go to Molly?
Good morning, Chair Redmond, members of the board. I'll turn it over to Deputy Fenton for a brief introduction. Thanks.
Thank you.
Morning, Chair Redmond, members of the board. I'm happy to introduce our Director of Human Resources, Molly Kimple, who will go over our annual dashboard report, HR dashboard report. We're proud to have Molly represent our service as the co-chair of the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police Human Resource Committee as well. A lot of focus over the last couple of years has been on recruitment, which Molly and her team have done an excellent job on, and has been reported in the past. We're thrilled to be at full complement our sworn recruiting at the end of 2024. However, as you will see, Molly and the Human Resources team provide oversight and leadership in many other areas integral to the health, wellness, and development of our members. And Molly's going to go over some of those highlights right now for you. Over to you, Molly.
Thank you, Deputy. I'll share my screen now. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can.
Yes, excellent. All right. So good morning, Chair McLean, Chair Redmond, and members of the board. I am pleased to present the 2024 Human Resources Dashboard Report. Starting with health and safety, you can see here year over year, these spikes, the obvious spikes in hazards reported in 2020, 2021, and to some extent 2022 due to the COVID years. And then most recently, there has been a 24% decrease in hazards. There's also been an 8% decrease in incidents requiring first aid and a 10% decrease in lost time claims. We're still hovering around the 1/3 mark in terms of lost time claims related to mental stress injuries. Overall, we've seen an 18% decrease in health and safety incidents from 2023, all signs pointing in the right direction from a health and safety standpoint. Now to wellness, a reminder that we have the wellness check-ins, which is a scheduled appointment with a mental health clinician. So members are familiar with seeing a mental health professional. We equate it to like a dentist appointment, a checkup for mental health. And then we have our wellness outreach, which is a formal connection by our wellness unit after a significant call or incident, when members are off work, or if a referral is made by a supervisor. We did see a decrease in wellness checks as we did move to a new service provider in 2024. That transition accounts for the reduction as we started off slower than in previous years. We did also see a slight decrease in outreach as we moved to a model where the direct supervisor is empowered to take the lead with member wellness as they know their members best. The wellness team made a point over 2024 to visit briefings across all platoons and all divisions to help convey this message and provide supervisors with the tools to make those wellness reach outs with their members. Over to leaves of absence. There was a 14% increase in leaves over 2023, with parental leaves in particular, as we see more and more fathers take some time off with new babies. Work-related absences, as it relates to our sworn membership, we did see a 22% increase in absent members versus the end of 2023. This is a trend we see across policing in general due to the amount of trauma that officers are exposed to. Our focus is to help keep members at work, but if they do need some time off, we stay connected and work on reintegrating them into the workplace as soon as possible to avoid long-term absences, which you'll recall we did see a decrease in. As for non-occupational sworn absences, we saw a 10% decrease since 2023. Over on the civilian side, we saw a 17% decrease for civilian work-related absences and a 17% increase in non-occupational absences, so net neutral there. Thanks to the Occupational Health, Safety and Wellness Unit for their incredible work in 2024. They are working hard to connect with all members and family members. We reached almost 2,000 connections in total in 2024 in order to create awareness of all the programming in place and to keep members safe and well. Now on to staffing. Here you see the authorized versus actual over the past 4 years. As the deputy mentioned, you can see the massive strides we made in 2024, catching up on sworn staffing to even a small surplus. In sworn staffing in particular, we saw 77 officers hired in 2024, 69 full-time officers and 8 part-time officers, the highest in the last 5 years, up 54% from 2023. Huge shout out to our outreach and recruitment teams who made massive efforts to get us to complement. On the civilian side, we saw similar successes with a 53% increase since the previous year. The talent acquisition team has moved to a more active sourcing model, resulting in great success in filling civilian professional positions. On to retirement. Oddly, we had the exact same numbers in 2023 as 2024 with 8 civilian retirements and 14 sworn retirements. We do expect an increase leading into 2028 when another large number of officers become eligible to retire. And finally, resignations. We did see a 20% decrease in sworn resignations from the previous year and a 20% increase in civilian resignations. 2/3 of those civilian resignations left for personal health or other reasons not related to other employment. Of those that left for other employment, often was the case that they left for a permanent job when they had a part-time position here or found employment closer to home. And that is a wrap on the metrics from Human Resources for 2024. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Molly, for that snapshot. Do we have any questions? Karen, click the house.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. The occupational absences, with regards to sworn members, would you say that members are being more proactive in seeking supports and taking time off in that manner, therefore resulting in fewer long-term absences? And if so, that's something that's very positive, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. We've made that correlation. I think because we see a decrease in the long-term claims, we equate to people acknowledging that they do need some time away from the workplace, but we try to minimize that as much as possible.
Thank you.
I'm really impressed, Molly, with the volume of calls that are made to follow up with people for wellness checks. Are we an anomaly? Do we have any comparators to other police services our size? I guess I'm thinking the Big 12.
You mean in terms of the wellness checks?
Yeah, the proactive way we're trying to ensure that our members are staying healthy and feeling that they're still included, even though they're maybe going through some difficulties.
Yeah, I'm not sure off the top of my head but I think in many aspects we're leading in that regard. There are other services that don't have this type of programming. So I've often been asked as part of the OACP PHR committee in terms of how to implement a regular program like this, where the goal is to have all members go and be exposed to a mental health clinician essentially at the onset of their career, so they don't have to wait until something happens. So, I don't have the specifics of which services have it and which don't, but we are often leading in terms of our proactive wellness reach outs.
Feels like a best practice, so that's impressive.
Absolutely.
Any further questions? Thank you very much for that. The next agenda item is Strategic Business Plan 2024 to 2027. It's a progress report. And again, Chief, who wants to introduce this?
Thanks, Chair Redmond, and welcoming a familiar face, Amanda Franciscini from our Strategic Services team. And she's also joined in the background by Manager Mandy Williams. So I'll let Amanda dive into the report. The board will recall that we're into an extended strategic business plan window. So it's a 4-year report. So the horizon for success is stretched out a little bit, but I can tell you that, as Amanda will highlight, there's a lot of work behind the scenes to become organized, mobilized, and focused on the successful completion of as many tasks as possible as we work through the plan. So I'll turn over to Amanda for an orientation on year 1 heading into year 2, and look forward to any feedback you have. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. I'm on my title slide. And while I'm on my title slide, I'll do a little bit of a refresher. Thank you, Chief, for highlighting that we are in a 4-year cycle. And recall that towards WRPS's desired future state, activities are organized into 4 levels. We have our goals, objectives, strategies, and tactics. And the goals and objectives both represent the relevant and feasible what WRPS is going to do. And these 2 layers have been published in our plan. Strategies and tactics are more specific and delve into how WRPS is going to do it. And the strategies are meant to be selective, reach-ahead initiatives, unique to this cycle, stemming from scanning evidence, and are explicitly listed in the attachment that went with this report, so that 4th column. And then the smaller steps, the tangible stuff called tactics, are more internal, to-do lists chunked into quarterly and yearly targets, and those can kind of be gleaned from the narratives that appear in that attachment. And they're naturally the most adaptable and responsive layer of the planning framework that we revisit over the course of the strategic business plan. So to segue into our progress at the end of year 1, at the end of year 1, we do have 1 strategy that's been closed. We now have created a project governance committee to ensure that new projects are properly prioritized, sequenced, and resourced. So that is our 1 achieved. We have 29 others in progress, and we also will have about 13 more anticipated to be completed in year 2. And it's really important to highlight some of our achievements. In this case, it falls under the goal of our resources, under the objective to embrace modernization. So the narrative that accompanies the strategy of establishing a project management committee really shows us how far we've come. And that will be true for all the subsequent achievements that we publish. So starting back in August 2024, the project coordinator would have presented a new framework. This framework would have been adopted, and this committee is now meeting regularly to ensure that projects are properly prioritized, sequenced, budgeted, and resourced. So again, this collection of statements lets us see how far we've come by the end of the plan and will be true for all the upcoming strategies. Now, to go with that accounting approach, there are some initial insights we can also gain from a complementary approach to gauging success. And that's to incorporate some evaluative thinking by predicting some of the intended effects of each strategy against standardized metrics. So each goal champion would have rated whether they expect their strategy to have a high, medium, low, or no effect against the 4 pillars of the Canadian Police Performance Metrics framework. And those pillars include crime and victimization, police activities and deployment, police resources, and trust and confidence in police. So using this tool with efforts running across the top and metrics running down the side, this kind of an evaluative matrix can shine a light on any gaps, clusters, or synergies. So the means ends evaluation is a helpful resource to monitor not only progress, but also the impact of our objectives. And you'll see this transition across the life cycle of the plan, where at first you're receiving reports of done or not done, quantities of things, and we're gradually going to progress to the quality and then the effect we have. So from a strategy perspective, you can look across to see some efforts may have a broad reach and others may have a narrow but deep reach. And from a metrics perspective, it may be possible to map which policing indicators are coming up most often, in which case champions again can create those synergies and focus their efforts. If we take a look at our goals, across crime and victimization, there's 8 different police performance metrics that are at our fingertips. And some of the most influential SBP goals in that category include our commitment to safety, naturally, and our connections. And interestingly, one of the metrics with the most focus and synergies across those 2 goals would be recontact variables. When it comes to police activities and deployment, which includes both non-crime policing responsibilities, that's where our connections rises to the top as being an influential goal. And in particular, our interest in providing quality of service. So again, we can use some of the standardized metrics to see how we become in a better place 4 years from now. Police resources, that includes items like personnel measures, and our most influential goals become our connections and our members. And diversity and representation is one of the most frequent metrics that comes up across those applicable efforts. In the trust and confidence category, our connections is again a goal that comes to the top, and trust and confidence in police standardized debt questions become important to measure if we're trying to show how our impact is in effect over the 4 years. Some of the next steps with the business plan, action plan check-ins remain ongoing. So those are regular meetings between myself and positions accountable, which may have a very hands-on role in following those smaller to-do chunked timeline steps, or with goal champions as a group with their shared interest in advancing our efforts. And again, updates, you'll start to see they'll shift from quantity of effort to quality of effort. And then with this means ends matrix, we can also take an inventory of existing reports of police performance metrics that reflect the predicted SBP influence. And as well, we'll be integrating more of a continuous data collection approach. So instead of scanning the public once every 3 years, as they have said they would like to be in touch more often, we'll find ways to make the most of our touch points and opportunities on key questions with the public. We'll also incorporate more evaluation after an initiative has run for some time. So for example, even with the project governance committee established and that objective marked as achieved, that can continue to be measured and monitored to make sure that it's still doing what we intended to do based on those metrics. And there's also opportunities to pulse check internally to make sure that we provide some context on our successes, as well as use some of the key questions that will help us let us know if we've made a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Mandy Williams, do you want to add anything to this?
No, I'm very excited to see this come together. And I think what will be really interesting is Amanda's new metrics for monitoring not only what we do, but how well we do it. So I'm looking forward to working with the community to getting more insight into what we're doing well.
I love the sort of shift from quantity to quality, which is what you're talking about. Most of the research I did, I always lean towards qualitative rather than quantitative because I'm not a math wizard, but I think that context really provides a narrative that you don't always get just from the numbers, so that's pretty exciting. Colleagues, anybody have any questions? Terrific, thank you very much, Amanda and Mandy, that's really great work. The next agenda item 11.3 is Chief and Public Complaint Statistics. Chief, do you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And once again, I'll hand it to Deputy Fenton for an introduction. Thank you.
Good morning again, Chair Redmond and members of the board. So I'm happy to introduce Inspector Eddie Lewis, who along with Superintendent Beth Houston provides leadership to our professional standards unit. He's going to provide a brief overview of our chief and public complaints statistics for 2024. And I think you'll see information in the report that highlights the exceptional professionalism of our members overall and the hard work the professional standards team does day in and day out to ensure the accountability and professionalism that the public and all of us expect of our members, while at the same time balancing their wellness throughout what can be a fairly stressful process when investigating a complaint. So over to you, Eddie.
Thank you, Deputy. Good morning, Chair Redmond, members of the board, Chief Kroll, Deputy Fenton and Deputy Davis. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I know that you have a fairly busy day. I'll try to provide some high-level information and try to be relatively brief for you. Before we move to the next slide, I just want to reinforce that the Professional Standards Branch does continue to build on the foundation that encourages dialogue with our members and with the members of the community. We're committed to building relationships, improving the quality of service that we deliver. Next slide, please. And you can see from the numbers there in 2024, LEC received 119 complaints regarding the WRPS. Of those 119, 72 were screened out, meaning that 47 were screened in for investigation. Of those 47, 37 were in relation to conduct, 5 were in relation to policies or services, and then the other 5 were actually dealt with through an early resolution process. The WRPS did receive fewer complaints than in 2023 in relation to the number of calls for service. Next slide, please. At the time of this report, 5 of the complaints are still under investigation. Of the 42 that are being investigated, 15 were unsubstantiated, 26 were resolved through an informal process or were withdrawn altogether, and only 1 was substantiated. Since joining the Professional Standards Branch, I have been encouraged by the high level of participation from our members and from the community. The degree of cooperation that we see and sharing of information has allowed us to see a significant number of resolutions. Taking the time to explain in detail the reason for an action or a decision can often be all that's required. Next slide, please. Thank you. We will continue to work with other areas of the service to establish strategies and messaging in an effort to reduce complaints. We have once again identified that most public complaints continue to come from or be towards officers that have less than 5 years of service. To bolster this, the impact on messaging, the Professional Standards Branch has been intentionally aligned with our Training and Education Branch and now falls under the Professional Development and Organizational Culture Division. The branches work close to educate and train sworn members, so a step in the right direction. Next slide, please. Thank you. The total number of chief's complaints, including red lights and speed enforcement infractions, also decreased. It's important to notice or important to be aware from this slide that although exemptions for officers do exist for speed and for red lights, we do look closely at the circumstances of each infraction notice. Safe driving messaging does continue to be was a priority in 2024 and will continue to be throughout 2025. Next slide, please. Thank you. Similar to public complaints, chief's complaints often involve officers with less than 5 years of experience. In light of this, Professional Standards Branch continues to promote awareness across the service, currently expanding on educating officers, their trainers, and their supervisors. We'll move to the next one. That's really short for you. Internally, information sharing takes place during recruit training, field development officer training, new officer training, and also at mid-leader training. Again, members are encouraged to take the necessary time to explain in detail the reason for an action or a decision. Again, to reiterate that often taking the extra time to provide an understanding of an authority or a procedure can be all that's required. An effort to educate community as well. We also engage in information sharing by the Professional Standards Branch at events similar to Citizens Police Academy. And next slide, thank you. In 2024, greater emphasis was placed on expediting resolutions. It's important to recognize in the third paragraph that you'll see that the overall length of time for chief's complaint investigations did decrease. 2022, it was 204 days approximately, or average, from 144 in 2023 to now 70 in 2024. As the deputy alluded to at the very beginning of the presentation, this comes with several benefits. First, we're able to provide the chief with a timely explanation, and it overall supports the overall approach to member wellness. And I think we'll move to the last slide. Again, I know you have a busy agenda. Thank you for your time today. Really want to recognize the hard work and effort of everyone behind the scenes throughout the year and in building the presentation and the report for you. A reminder that we do take every complaint seriously and make every effort to be able to establish trust with the community. Deputy, I'll turn it over to you for any comments or questions.
Thank you, Inspector Lewis and Deputy Chief Fenton. Are there any questions? Sandy?
Not really a question, just an observation and a comment. And people aren't very quick to send thank you letters and notes of positive comments, I suppose. So I just wanted to say, the 100 thank you letters really represents a lot more than 100. And I hope you can remember that.
Karen?
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I want to recognize the professional approach that's used to complaints, and utilizing it really as an opportunity to learn and to improve. So thank you for that work.
Perfect, thank you very much. I see no further questions. The next agenda item 11.4 is road safety plan. And again, Chief, is this you or one of the deputies?
I'll hand it over to Deputy Davis in a moment. I just want to acknowledge the work that Inspector Lewis just featured, and just how proud we are as a team. And we're a human service organization, just dealing with conflict and challenges every day. But the work that we're putting into resolving issues with our community is considerable, and the results speak for themselves. So thanks for the support of the board, and also to the work that was featured there from Inspector Lewis. So with that, I'll hand over to Deputy Davis to introduce our next item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chair Redmond and members of the board. I'm happy to introduce Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths today. He oversees our traffic services branch, and he will be sharing with you a detailed presentation, not only on our 2024 road safety results, but also launch of the 2025 road safety plan. And before I pass it over to Scott, I just would like to take the opportunity to reiterate the service's ongoing commitment to road safety across the region. It's through collaboration with our municipal and regional partners, ongoing education and enforcement, but looking at the safety of all of our community. And over to you, Scott. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Davis. Chair McLean, Chair Redmond, members of the board and senior leadership, thank you for this opportunity today to speak with you about some highlights of our 2024 road safety efforts, as well as plans for our 2025 road safety plan. Holly, if I could ask you to share the screen for the slide deck, please. So again, thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today in regards to some highlights from last year and our plans for 2025. Next slide, please. I'll start off this presentation with a review of 2024's results in road safety, as well as some of our statistics from collisions. And next slide, please. 2024 saw some significant changes in our collision statistics over 2023, with a 50% increase in fatalities. Last year, we had 15 fatalities with 17 deaths as a result of those fatalities. That amounts to a 50% increase, as stated. We had 127 major injury collisions, which amounted to a 32% increase in that total over 2023. Of note, 40% of those collisions, of the fatalities, were linked to fatal 4 offenses. Fatal 4 offenses being impaired driving, aggressive driving, seatbelt use, and distracted driving. Impairment was found to be a factor in 3 of our 15 fatal crashes last year, and 46% of our fatalities occurred on rural township roadways. Excuse me. Next slide, please. So this chart gives a layout of the locations of our collisions, majors and fatals, with our fatalities being centered in Kitchener, Cambridge, North Dumfries, Woolwich, Wilmot, and Wellesley, the only exception being Waterloo. However, major injury collisions had occurred last year in all townships and cities within the region. Next slide, please. Our enforcement results for 2024 were relatively stable. We had total road safety charges were 22,777 in 2024. That amounts to a 1% decrease over 23. Of those charges, 7,813 of those were considered our fatal 4. Again, speeding, impaired driving, seatbelt use, and distracted driving. Our stunt driving charges decreased 7% to 586 charges laid in 2024, and 474 charges were laid on rural townships in 2024. 36% of our stunt driving charges occurred on rural township roadways. Next slide, please. In regards to impaired driving, our 2024 results were 818 impaired driving charges laid. That amounts to a 13% decrease over 2023. Impairment, again, was found to be a factor in 3 of our 15 fatalities. Our WRPS drug recognition experts conducted a total of 92 evaluations in 2024. These are highly skilled, highly trained officers trained in the detection of drug impairment through psychophysical testing. 62 persons were issued license suspensions, indicating that they were found to be impaired by those officers. And WRPS ranks 4th provincially in the number of charges, or number of suspensions and charges laid by officers for drug impairment. WRPS is also a committed user to the approved drug screening device. These are devices that are used by traffic officers in the course of their duties to detect the presence of drugs in young and novice drivers, as well as commercial vehicle drivers, through the use of a mouth swab. Last year, 17 roadside suspensions were issued for presence of drugs to these parties. Just to note, the device is only used on novice and young drivers and commercial vehicle drivers. WRPS is the provincial leader in the use of ADSE. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, our 2024 results were stated above, and moving on to 2025 for our priorities for our road safety in the region. Our primary goals this year are to reduce major injury collisions and fatalities by strategically targeting the key issues causing them, which we found to be the fatal 4 offenses and intersection-related violations. Recognizing the interests of impaired driving continue to be a concern, we're going to continue our efforts to combat impaired driving proactively through things such as ride initiatives, the use of mandatory alcohol screening in some situations, and further education to the public regarding the hazards of impaired driving. We've set a goal to increase our proactive road safety enforcement numbers by 15% over 2024 statistics, with a primary focus on the fatal 4 offenses. We work, as the chief and deputy have said in previous presentations, collaboratively with our regional partners, the cities, townships, and the region itself, to address our concern areas. We're making attempts to address road safety complaints in a intelligence-led approach, and that means directing our officers to places where they need to be at the times that they need to be, and that includes our monthly road safety enforcement teams. We're going to continue our enforcement efforts in our rural townships because, as we know from our statistics, a significant number of road safety collisions as well as offenses occur in those rural townships. We've also have a goal to leverage and to further expand the use of our new technologies, such as automated license plate readers, our Black Cat road safety survey device, to address road safety concerns in an intelligence-led way. In addition, 2025 will see a comprehensive review of our remotely piloted vehicle program, which TSU currently administers, with a focus on leveraging that technology for further use in the fields of collision investigation and other associated uses. I'd like to thank you for your time and the opportunity to provide this information to you, and pending any questions, I will thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Staff Sergeant Griffiths. Do we have any questions? Sandy.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Excuse me, and for the focus on the traffic issues. That's one of the big things that I get a lot of complaints about. I have a question about, I'm getting mixed messages in a number of places about speed limits and sort of expectations of the roads, and it's partly coming in with our automated speed enforcement and where we've changed speed limits on certain roads. Getting a number of complaints about aggressive driving, people being upset about others slowing down, almost getting rear-ended because of that. And so my question is really, can you tell me how you and the region and the townships and cities work together on that, or do you on placement and that piece of it?
So we work collaboratively, Madam Mayor, with the region and the townships through traffic coordinators meetings where I'm present. The ASE program, as you know, is administered by the region. So a large portion of that work is done by the regional staff in collaboration with the townships and the cities. So when it comes to speed limit changes, those are in coordination with those changes or the installation of those ASEs. So certainly we are definitely interested in receiving complaints regarding aggressive driving and any sort of issues that are revolving around those. We offer advice and some input when desired from the region on certain issues surrounding that. But we continue to be obviously in certain areas where if the speed limit has dropped and the number of complaints has increased, we're going to focus our enforcement on those areas as required.
Love singer line.
Jim, you have a question? You're just agreeing with.
I was just agreeing with Sandy.
I really, as board members, we get to see the reports monthly, and I understand leveraging new and emerging technologies such as the automated license plate registries has been very effective in sort of following up on people who are on the roads and ought not to be. I don't have no idea what Black Cat is. And I read through the report and I flagged this. So can you inform me and probably everybody else, what is Black Cat technology?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. The Black Cat device is a traffic survey device that we obtained several years ago. So essentially, it equates to a pole mountable version of those tubes that you would see on the roadway, like a traffic survey done by cities or townships. That it analyzes speed. So it uses radar to analyze anonymously to analyze vehicle traffic on a roadway. So it will provide us data. When we set up the device, we set it up typically for a week-long period, and it will provide us a snapshot of a roadway's volume, the speeds that are recorded by vehicles on that roadway during that period, as well as it digs down with further data in regards to date and time locations. So what it provides to us is if there's an area of interest for us to conduct enforcement, it'll be able to tell us whether there is a significant number of violations to a set threshold, whether or not there is a time of day. Usually it's in the rush hour periods or certain periods of day where enforcement opportunities are higher. So that way we can focus our efforts so we're not wasting officer time and resources during times of day where there's low volume or low offense related records. And it also allows us to identify whether the location is something that is, volume-wise or results-wise, not something that we want to prioritize necessarily. Although, citizen complaints are very important, and everyone's observations are certainly valid. There are situations where we find where the actual overall violation rate's very low, and we tend to remove that. We put that lower down on our list of target locations.
Thank you very much. And that explanation, I think, has provoked another question from Sandy.
Thank you. Is that data available to municipalities? If we asked for it or not?
Yeah, certainly. Certainly we communicate back and forth through our STEP program. So we have a STEP committee for selective traffic enforcement. Again, another focus with the cities and townships to work collaboratively on intelligence-led enforcement. So we share information back and forth with the townships, and the cities can share information with us, and we can certainly on request provide that to the staff.
Awesome, thank you.
And my question was the other side of that coin, and the region has invested a lot of money in MyVision. And I know that it is an intelligent way of monitoring the pedestrians, cyclists, and traffic at intersections. Is that kind of information shared with you?
Certainly, on request, we get information for investigative purpose or for enforcement related issues if we have it. Again, the technology and the collaboration that we work with the region, transportation staff, as well as the cities and townships has been, we've always maintained a very positive relationship. So we utilize that technology in investigative purpose in the past, and we will continue to do so.
You sound very busy. Doug, you have a question?
Just very quickly, I'm interested in the automatic devices that read license plates. So these are in the cars. The officers are driving. Do the devices looking at every license plate in the area as it goes by? How does it work? Or does the officer have to point it?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So the ALPR is baked into the in-car camera system that we have installed in our vehicles. So the in-car camera has a field of vision. It processes license plates as it's able to read them in the field of vision that it has. So it will get cars coming and going. So cars going ahead of the cruiser, as well as coming towards the cruiser. The software, the in-car camera software, has features where it will alert officers to certain violations from the hot list or from Ministry of Transportation data that's obtained in regards to perhaps, for example, a suspended driver, or depending on what the settings of the officer has put on it, it could everything from expired license plates all the way up to very serious issues such as a wanted person or whatever, if it registers that. So we find those, it alerts the officer, it gives them the opportunity to see a quick shot of the license plate or of the vehicle involved. And if they're able to address that, or if that's something they're currently focusing on, they can certainly turn and address or stop that vehicle and address those issues.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, it's good.
Thank you so much, Staff Sergeant. I don't see any more questions, but it's been very informative, so thank you.
Thank you
it's
for your
good.
time.
The next two reports, I think will be presented by, in one presentation, so 11.5 is Regulated Interactions Annual Report. And the second is 2025 to 29 Intelligent Notes Q4. Chief, do you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, thanks, Chair Redmond, and happy to welcome Hassan Siddiqui, who is be leading us through both presentations, and he's supported by the Strategic Services team. And so Hassan will walk us through these two different but related reports, and look forward to your dialogue. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, I really shouldn't have anxiety about sharing my screen anymore, but there always is a little bit of anxiety, but hopefully you can see everything okay. Thank you again, Chief, for the introduction, and good morning, everybody. I hope that you're all doing well. We'll jump right into it. As a quick reminder, as either mandated by legislation or required by the board, WRPS officers are required to collect race-based data in 4 selected interactions. Those interactions are use of force, regulated interactions, intelligence notes, and search of persons in custody. And officers at WRPS have been providing this data since 2020. In line with the Ontario data standards for the identification and monitoring of systemic racism, we apply 2 different analytical approaches. Racial disproportion, where we take the proportion of individuals within a police data set and compare that to the local resident population proportions. Next, we have enforcement action benchmarking, where groups within the data set are compared to each other. Ratios exceeding a cutoff value of 1.5 serve as flags for further investigation to the policy, practice, and procedures that inform police decision-making. The purpose of collecting and identifying race-based data is for that purpose of identifying and reducing systemic racism where possible by identifying factors related to the system of policing that may lead to inequitable outcomes. And so today I will present the highlights of regulated interactions and intelligence notes created in 2024, both of which are forms of intelligence gathering at WRPS. In regulated interactions, identifying information is collected by directly asking the individual. In intelligence notes, identifying information can be collected where no interaction takes place, like a passive observation, where the identifying information is derived by a third-party source or already known to the officer, or where the interaction with the person was first lawful. Across 2024, there were 1,024 intelligence notes created and 8 regulated interactions. For each, we see a relatively equal spread across the quarters, with the exception of Q1 in 2024, where we saw more intelligence notes compared to the other quarters. The 8 regulated interactions mainly captured information about younger racialized men. Moving on to intelligence notes, of the 1,024 intelligence notes created, 395 focused on person subjects. In this graph, the blue bars indicate the percent representation within intelligence notes, while the gray bars represent the percent representation within the population. Within these 395 intelligence notes, Black and Middle Eastern racialized groups were overrepresented as compared to the local resident population. The blue bars are taller than the gray bars here. There's no overrepresentation of racialized groups in comparison to the white category. The blue bar for the white category is the tallest on the graph. In this graph, we move on to our enforcement action benchmarking strategy. Here, the red line at the 1.5 represents that threshold for overrepresentation that represents a flag for further investigation. Looking within the rationales, we see overrepresentation for Black individuals in notes related to break and enter / robbery, firearms, fraud, and human trafficking. We also see the overrepresentation of Middle Eastern individuals in notes related to firearms, organized and financial crime, as well as the other category. Using these flags to drive our investigation, we can triangulate the pattern against other types of information, both within and external to WRPS, to gain a better understanding of why we might see the overrepresentation of Black and Middle Eastern individuals in particular categories. That why really takes us back to the 4 drivers of disparity that we talked about earlier. So in summary, we saw an increased number of regulated interactions in 2024 compared to previous years. Intelligence notes continue to be the most frequently used tool for intelligence gathering, although we did see a slight decline compared to 2023. When investigating data related to person characteristics, we observed the overrepresentation of younger racialized men in both intelligence notes and regulated interactions. As we move forward, WRPS aims to find ways to better contextualize this data to better identify the sources of overrepresentation. This work will continue to be guided by our academic partners, Drs. Les Jacobs and Warren Foster. Finally, WRPS plans to establish a community council to add community voices to help guide the race and identity-based data analytics strategy. Their input will be invaluable as we continue to do work on identifying the sources of overrepresentation observed in the presentation today, as well as talking about the solutions moving forward. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Colleagues, any questions? So this may be a question that's more fair to ask Drs. Jacobs and Foster, but I know in the past we've talked about whether we had enough data to make our findings significant. Are we still of the view that we're getting enough volume of data that these are significant findings?
I think especially within the context of intelligence notes, where we had over 1,000 last year and 1,000 this year, we're able to make interesting year-to-year comparisons, as well as doing those breakdowns into specific rationales, which we may not have been able to do when we just started the race and identity-based data strategy. So I think we're definitely in a much better spot for doing some more intricate and interesting analyses. And yeah, I think for regulated interactions, we're still obviously at a much smaller number, but for intelligence notes, at least we definitely have that sort of year-on-year data that's interesting to analyze.
I guess the trends over time are always really informative as well, right? Thank you very much. I see no further questions.
Chair Redmond, if I could, I just saw Mandy Williams pop on, and I think she might have some comments. And if she doesn't cover the ground, I hope she does. I might chime in as well. So go ahead, Mandy, just for a commentary.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think that's a great question about the volume of data, and Hassan has it correct that, we're in a position where we're seeing the year-on-year trends. So now that we're able to dive down into that. But the purpose of the data really is to serve as flags for further investigation. So that's a key point. So we have enough of a pattern now, especially with the year-on data across these 4 interactions, where we're able to drill into kind of the system of WRPS to look at our policies, practices, and procedure to see where there might be flags that we can follow up on. So the real work begins now that we've established the foundation.
So Mandy, now that you lit up your square, and sorry, Chief, I'll come to you, but one of the things that I think interesting in the intelligent notes is even if 2 or 3 officers there that might have reports that didn't necessarily reflect the same perception of who they were dealing with. And I always, every time I think about that, it strikes me that one of the things that we tell witnesses is don't talk to each other, right? So their perception is their perception. I'm wondering how that figures into the data.
We only deal with perceived race under the Ontario data standard. So we only deal with how an individual is perceived by an officer, because what we're really interested in looking at is how our policies, procedures, systemic bias is operating through officers and inputting in their decision makers. So how someone identifies might influence their interaction with police on that end, but it won't necessarily infect is the word I would use, bias contagion research would demonstrate. That wouldn't necessarily impact the officer's behavior, how an individual is self-identifying. And because of the risks of collecting such sensitive information within a sensitive interaction, we're very happy to get a handle of perceived race and what that's telling us about systemic racism, which is the purpose of that data. And then when we're ready, and if there's a desire to move into different forms of race data, we're happy to do that. But I think right now we have enough work just on the perceived race end of things.
Thank you so much. Chief, over to you.
Thanks. Thanks both to Mandy and Hassan. And I just want to highlight and remind the board, this is some leading work that WRPS has done for some time. So we're unique in the intelligence notes work that gives us insights into the actual activity of our officers on a proactive basis through the course of their on-call observations, but also some of those proactive initiatives as well. And WRPS is also proudly co-leading the next phase of this work at a provincial level. So phase 2 for the Ontario Association of Chiefs commitment to race and database data collection is going through its finalization. And we really want to raise the bar for services across Ontario so that to your original question, Chair Redmond, we're having one conversation about what's happening in Waterloo region, but also what's happening across the province, informed by many stakeholder, academic experts, leading government voices, so that we're having a really honest conversation about outcomes that we're seeing in this community and beyond. So that work is undergoing. It is cumulative. It is slower than any of us would like to get to solutions and to have those community dialogues, but we're on the right track and very proud of our members doing some of that leading work.
Thank you very much. That's important information for all of us to recognize, both on the board and as a community. The next agenda item is 11.7, Community Safe and Wellbeing Plan, Police recontact. Chief, who wants to introduce this?
I'll be brief. So Inspector Aaron Mathias is joining us now for a presentation. As you know, his role is the service liaison and leader for the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. And as we work through the phases of reporting and informing the board and our community on the work and those priorities, we're also finding unique opportunities to highlight some really unique analysis on the impact of police work, but also how we intersect with other systems and other services. So through this brief presentation, it'll give you a sense of where we're starting to build some frameworks to inform policy and eventually social change. Over to you, Aaron. Thanks.
Good morning, Chief, and thank you. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Share my screen with you now. I trust we can all see that. Very pleased to join you today and provide a brief report around maybe a more technical aspect of the community safety well-being, and more specifically looking at police recontact data with WRPS in the areas of mental health and some youth-related occurrences. As we know, our community safety well-being plan has prioritized addressing mental health and addictions needs together. And these efforts are now being led by a newly formed systems transformation team comprised of both Cambridge North Dumfries and KW4 Ontario Health teams. Additionally, the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan is moving to transition the ongoing work of the former PACES committee or Community Resilience Committee focused on adverse childhood experiences and using a trauma-informed approach while dealing with vulnerable sectors. This presentation will provide a cursory review of 2024 recontact data related to these two fields and demonstrate how we may use this information to focus our efforts, evaluation, resources, and also the opportunity that connected data presents. As we see, and as I try and present each month, the Community Safety Wellbeing Framework provides a visual representation of the overall purpose of these plans. And this is through a multi-sector approach to move vulnerable and at-risk individuals or populations away from repeated instances of incident response or recontact and into resources-based and risk intervention, prevention, and social development. We'll look now at some overall mental health incidents and individuals involved. And to qualify the data in this presentation, it's all occurring between January 1st and December 31st, 2024. The Waterloo Regional Police Service responded to 2,943 mental health occurrences. We had contact with 2,261 individuals, which includes recontacts related to those occurrences. From these occurrences, we can see 422 individuals were identified as having repeat presentations or defined as having 2 mental health contacts with police in a 12-month period, and 129 individuals classified as having chronic presentations, which is 2 contacts with police in a 14-day period. Getting a little more specific, under occurrence types 9373 and 9374, which is representative of mental health apprehensions without order for both males and females, WRPS apprehended 974 individuals in 2024, resulting in 1,219 total apprehensions. During this time frame, the same 974 individuals had recontact with the police service, generating 4,765 occurrences of any type during 2024, providing us an overall average of recontact for 4.89 calls per person. The chart we're looking at provides a breakdown of the total sample and categorized by numbers of apprehension by individual, so they're grouped. At the top end, we see those individuals with greater than 3 apprehensions. So we had 19 individuals were identified as being apprehended 3 or more times, 97 total apprehensions, and 258 instances of overall recontact with the police for any occurrences are attributed to this group, resulting in an average of 13.58 occurrences per person for these 19 individuals. Moving to our 9 code 9378, which is insufficient grounds for apprehension. This is a call type that generates significant demand for the police service, and we see a similar trend appear. Those individuals who have 1 call under this classification in 2024 had an overall average of 3.58 occurrences of recontact of any type with the police service, while those with 3 or more occurrences under this call type had an average of 16.5 occurrences of any type throughout 2024. This section of the report will examine some recontact data which aligns with the identified and accepted community risk factors appearing on the Adverse Childhood Experiences Scale. This includes being a victim of violence and witnessing intimate partner violence. The WRPS Youth Engagement Strategy and the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan are committed to identifying and mitigating adverse childhood experiences in order to improve outcomes and opportunities for youth in our region. And as we encounter and identify these situations through our normal course of duty, the service has the opportunity and does and continues to act as a referral system to lead youth to the right provider at the right time. So we will look specifically at some specific call types here. This slide, similarly to a previous one, outlines recontact frequency through 2024 for apprehensions without order involving male and female youth between 12 and 17 years of age. The graph demonstrates the high level of recontact for youth under this call type, with an average of 19 calls at the high end, so 3 or more apprehensions. We have an average of 19 incidents of recontact for occurrences of any type, and an overall average for the entire sample size of 9.02 incidents of recontact. And what is demonstrated specifically with this subset is that a small at-risk population continues to have repeated outcomes and recontact with police. And if we consider the earlier continuum that we looked at, this high level of recontact may indicate either barriers to accessibility barriers to accessibility in programming or gaps in programming more broadly for this particular set of young people. Moving now to look at recontact frequency for youth ages 12 to 17 who have the UCR classification of victim crime against the person. We see that those individuals who had this classification greater than 3 times had the highest average number of recontact occurrences per individual at 16.34 calls per person. So said differently, those 22 individuals who had that classification had 360 total occurrences attributed to them. Those who were classified as that same classification 3 times had an individual average of 10.61 incidents of recontact. Grouped together, 53 individuals who experienced victimization 155 times and had a total of 689 occurrences attributed to them. And using that same piece of data and using a correlational analysis provides us the ability to determine the relationship, if any, between specific incident types and police recontact, while observing any potential differences as experienced by males and females. This graph indicates that both male and female have a higher correlation of recontact with police if they have repeated incidents of being a victim of crime against the person. These are the strongest correlations amongst all variables that we reviewed, suggesting that future efforts at reducing recontact may benefit from focusing on youth victimization. The overall analysis using the gender of involved individual further refines the ability to articulate where services or interventions may be required. And lastly, this graphic is representative not only of the myriad of supports and services that individuals that we have recontact with or see with frequency may also be engaging at the same time or along a kind of their lifespan, but also highlights the opportunity available to us through the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan by developing a better understanding of recontact and the overall demands on our systems and social services. The current alignment of our systems and data collection does not allow for the measurement of this overall systems demand or an ability to identify temporal patterns which may assist with earlier interventions. Connecting data allows for effective and fiscally responsible design of evidence-based initiatives around our 4 regional priorities and their ongoing evaluation. This data also highlights systemic gaps in the opportunities for timely early intervention, delivery of preventative resources, leading to increased safety, well-being, and overall systems capacity improvement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Inspector. Do we have any questions? Sam?
I do have a question. I'm trying to formulate it in my mind, and it's probably embedded in here a little bit. So multiple contacts with an individual to me would indicate that we need to have maybe a different kind of intervention, and that all is to come together in the community safety and wellbeing plan and those interactions. Can you say a little bit more about how that happens and what that looks like and where the gaps are, or where you see the gaps?
Chief, through I think maybe to provide a specific example of some of the ongoing work, the systems transformation team and both OHTs have prioritized the examination of repeated or high frequency engagement for our systems. And so we're looking to centralize that specifically with that table under academics who would be able to maybe look at that information more broadly. And I think that will really illuminate where the gaps exist. I think if you consider where we are in that continuum as in terms of incident response, if people are arriving on our doorstep multiple times, 16 or 19 times a year, I think we can safely say that there is a gap. Identifying it, I think, will require some of those connection points between our information.
Do we have a plan? Well, you just said it's going to be referred. Do we have a plan or timelines or maybe a little more on how that might come together?
Through you again, Chief. So those are active conversations, and that's information that's being collated in as a follow-up to the meeting that occurred about 2 weeks ago. So we look to have hopefully some further updates as those pieces come together. We did have some kind of approaches to this with our work around the alternate destination clinic, but maybe not in the totality that was outlined here today.
Thanks.
I don't see any further questions. I just really want to commend WRPS leadership and Inspector Mathias, who's been sort of the point person on the safety and well-being project for a very long time. It is incredibly exciting to know that the Ontario Health teams, both the KW4 and Cambridge North Dumfries, are part of this, because to me it speaks to a system response where nobody in any corner of this region will be left out and where those gaps will be identified. Inspector Mathias was good enough to travel to Toronto when we were delegating at ROMA, which is the Rural Ontario Municipalities Association conference. And I think we had a really robust delegation. And I think the fact that we not only work collaboratively and as a community, but we can demonstrate that just really adds a lot of weight to the work that we're doing. So congratulations on continuing to move this really important initiative ahead. And I know that Karen Quigley Hobbs sits on the steering committee, and Sandy has in the past, as has Tony. And I think our investment as a police service board, as well as the region and all of our partners in the community, really makes it a very robust reaction to some very complex issues. Chief, I don't know, do you want a final word?
Just to complement your words as well, is we're very optimistic that this year will be groundbreaking for our shared initiatives. And what's been highlighted through this short presentation is the power of data collaboration and the data sharing table that's embedded in the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. Hopefully will open us many opportunities and breakthroughs to serve people better. So thanks for the presentation and look forward to the year ahead.
Thank you very much. The next agenda item is the monthly Chief of Police report. So over to you, Chief Crow.
Thanks, Chair Redmond, members of the board. Very proud to present the monthly Chief of Police report, looking back at January and heading into February. So just over a week ago, we hosted all of our media partners at headquarters to give a presentation highlighting key service trends and outcomes from 2024. And we also provided a snapshot of priorities heading into 2025, including our crime suppression plans, our commitment to advancing innovation and modernization in many forms, and also the Waterloo Region Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. So we do want to thank our media partners for joining us and also for their daily support in amplifying and sharing crucial community information about crime and victimization, and also successes we're having in our community and in helping those most vulnerable. Looking at some great police work, just highlighting a couple investigations. There was an incident or investigation that occurred. 4 males were arrested after a drug trafficking investigation in Cambridge. Our Drugs and Firearms Unit concluded a 4-month investigation, and after the completion of 5 search warrants in Cambridge, 4 residences and 1 commercial business were searched. And as a result, a number of drugs were seized, and also the evidence of drug trafficking, including cocaine, fentanyl, and Canadian currency. And as a result, 3 males were charged with a series of offenses. Similarly, our offender management unit began investigation in January as well in relation to drug trafficking throughout Waterloo Region. And through the completion of search warrants, we seized several weapons, including a sawed-off shotgun, replica handguns, a series of ammunition, as well as a number of drug examples such as fentanyl, cocaine, and other forms of drugs and Canadian currency. As a result, a couple individuals were arrested and charged as well in this investigation. And just for something different, to highlight a very complex and sophisticated evolution of crime, we had a fraud investigation that looked different than those we've seen in the past. So between October and January, we saw a couple individuals frequenting area grocery stores, applying fraudulent barcodes to numerous items. And then through the course of activity within the grocery store, they were activating gift cards that were associated with the barcodes that were being purchased by customers. So very detailed and sophisticated operation. And through the course of working with the grocery stores and the retail partners, this led to a breakthrough in the investigation on January 29th, where ultimately we responded and arrested the individuals involved. So there's no shortage of innovation and evolution in crime, and our officers have responded well to this adaptation. Looking at road safety efforts throughout the month of January, you can see displayed our commitment to enforcement activities. Despite the recent snowy weather, we are out there with our enforcement activities, especially focused on the Fatal Four. And this is also carried over following our successful festive ride campaign. We've also continued with our ride check program throughout all corners of the region. We will be checking for evidence of impaired driving, and having stopped 250 vehicles in the course of one night in late January. We had a number of positive interactions, but also some enforcement activity related to impaired driving and other concerns on the roadway use. Looking at some more positive incidents and initiatives for our service, we're very proud to be hosting in a short period of time the 2025 Polar Plunge at our headquarters facility on Saturday, March 1st. And we're encouraging all those from organizations, individuals, families to come out to support, to participate, and to help us to raise money for the Special Olympics. Last year was an incredible year raising funds for this initiative. And we've also carried through our commitment to supporting the Special Olympics through the Canada-wide Choose to Include campaign, where we participated at a local Tim Hortons, and ultimately $1.3 million was raised by police services through this initiative for Special Olympics across Canada. We're very proud to have kicked off this season's Citizens Police Academy. And in early February, we welcomed 40 new participants to the program, and we look forward to the next 11 weeks ahead through education and engagement and learning and sharing with our community. Also looking at celebrating Black History Month, we're very proud to honor the rich legacy, achievements, and culture of Black communities across Waterloo Region and beyond. And our service has been involved in internal initiatives, highlighting our own members, engagement opportunities, and educational opportunities, and also participating in various celebrations and gatherings throughout the region. And that will continue in the couple weeks ahead. Looking at something of significance, we're very proud that following last month's announcement, we have also been recognized as one of the top employers in Southwestern Ontario, recognizing this services and this board's commitment to our dedication to community engagement, prioritizing member wellness, a compensation of our members for the hard, important work that they do, and also our considerable commitment to charitable causes and engagement throughout the community. So very proud achievement for the service at large, and this will help us with our continued human resource and talent acquisition measures moving forward. And throughout the month of February and heading into hopefully a warmer March, we will continue to be engaged in many involvements, celebrations, and initiatives, whether it's with Black History Month gatherings, the Food Bank of Waterloo Region, or the grand opening of an Indigenous childcare and family center in Cambridge. Very proud of our members' total engagement and also the responsiveness and partnership in our community. So wishing everybody a healthy, happy, and safe February, and a turn into spring as we close out the month. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any questions?
I think, Madam Chair, that we should nominate the Ian McLean for the Polar Plunge in his absence. Okay?
Careful, Doug, you might look for friends.
I politely declined, Doug, thank you.
Oh, he's still here. Oh, okay.
I think the variety of the activities that you do to make sure that you're connected to the community, Chief, you and your leadership team, there's very few events within the community I go to that you're not represented at, and that's throughout the whole region. So congratulations on that. You know, you talk, the award or being recognized as a top employer is a huge feather in our cap. And it made me go back to our badging ceremonies and the recruits that we get to meet 3 or 4 times a year. And what they often will say to me unsolicited is how amazing the support that they got from WRPS to be successful when they went to a police college. It's second to none. I think they usually give a shout out to the people who have provided them support, but I think it speaks to the kind of recruitment statistics we've had and the success of our new recruits or people who have transferred from other police services to join us. So well done. The board would love to take responsibility for all of that, but it rests with you, Chief. Go ahead.
Thanks very much. There's a window, and I'll just say it's a total team effort. Every corner of the service is committed to improving, and we're seeing some great results in many respects. So thanks for the board's support and certainly our community partnerships that are making all this possible. And we're heading into 2025 in a very strong position. Look forward to continuing.
See no further questions. Is there any new business? Any future agenda items? Funny, I don't say that with the trepidation that I do sometimes at regional council. Information items, once we're adjourned, members of the media are welcome to log into Zoom with the login details that were provided, where Chief Kroll and myself will be available to take questions from the media. So now I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Ian, Jim, all those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you, colleagues. Great morning of